Mortal Kombat 11 got off to a hot start in December of 2018 with the release of the cinematic announcement trailer. The trailer featured a well-choreographed fight between Raiden and Scorpion. Oh, we're not gonna talk about how this Scorpion skin was never added, and utilized an unreleased 21 Savage track. The trailer's animations matched attacks that players could later use in-game, and overall the announcement was a major success. Fast forward to April 23rd, 2019, we had reached the day multiple generations of fans had been anticipating. The MK11 beta that had been accessible for players who pre-ordered the game was predominantly dominated by Scorpion, and players were eager to see what changes would be made to the gameplay upon release. Would NetherRealm stick to their decision to not feature a running mechanic? Was getting rid of X-rays a mistake? There were some minor hiccups in the first few months of Mortal Kombat 11. For starters, the game that had touted the creation of custom variations didn't actually allow this feature in competitive modes, and ranked play actually featured less variations per character than the previous Mortal Kombat installment. The game had also moved away from the highly popular combo breaker and meter building systems, and instead were exchanged for breakaway and regenerating offensive and defensive meter. The new crushing blow system did favor some characters more than others, but overall it wasn't detrimental to the balance of the game, as is highlighted by the first top tier character, Sonya Blade. Sonya had an extremely high damage ceiling with her combos that would later be nerfed, but nonetheless, the community still had NetherRealm's back. In the first few months, NetherRealm made some balance changes that toned down the power of some of the game's top characters. Does anybody remember when Liu Kang had an easy confirmable 9-frame mid, his forward 4 started up quicker, and his fireballs traveled across the screen faster? Meanwhile, the community was busy trying to learn the new mechanics added to the franchise, such as flawless blocking, and also kept lobbing out the idea to NetherRealm to create another competitive variation slot, which would eventually happen. Also during the early era of Mortal Kombat 11, Ninjakilla made his first online appearance after becoming the best MKX player in the world, and the community was buzzing after seeing his performance against Sonic Fox in Mortal Kombat X. It is worth noting that Sonic Fox had been focusing on other fighting games for quite some time, so they are still well regarded as the best Mortal Kombat X player of all time. It is definitely interesting to look back on this time period where Cetrion wasn't quite as popular at the top level, shout out Dragon. Jackie is still a top 5 character 4 years later, and we got the viral tournament clip of Buffalo's pop-off on Scar.
Oh, taking out Scar with the pop-off! That's right, there's some beef between these guys. There's some beef, so let me explain this, right? When Buffalo beat Ninjakilla, right? Scar, he went on Twitter, he was like, holy crap! Scar was on Twitter, right? He was saying, this is only because they went to first to 2. He was basically implying that if this was first to 3, Buffalo would not have beaten Ninjakilla, right? Buffalo, he was in there, he was like, why are you talking shit about me? Why are you doing this? And Star's like, you know, I don't even want to talk to you, and he blocks him, right? So these guys, they have some real beef, and he had a lot to prove right there. That was a really serious pop-off. But also, that was a 2-0 for Buffalo.
Oh my god. I didn't realize how deep that beef
I
went.
did not realize that beef was still that deep. I mean, that was like a few weeks ago.
I swear I saw that clip on like every single commentary channel on YouTube. A reminder though, Scar won the first MK11 Major, which was Combo Breaker in May of 2019, against Sonic Fox. The connection between NetherRealm and the Mortal Kombat community slowly started to become more fickle after the release of Combat Pack 1. Grumblings over the DLC characters being pay to win, and debates over the breakaway and fatal blow systems were steadily increasing. At this point in the game, there was still no armor breaking system, which meant you could get full combo punished for simply doing a combo yourself. Not that it's perfect nowadays. And players were still locked into 3 variations in competitive play. Morale was lowered further by 2020 offline events being completely cancelled. Let's be real, that year was awful. And NetherRealm developers also had to begin working from home, which increased the length of time in between updates. Opinions on MK11 at this point were pretty mixed. Creators such as MK Tom Brady heavily criticized NetherRealm's decisions, and it was loosely implied that Super preferred the fighting style of Mortal Kombat X over Mortal Kombat 11. Other community legends though, such as MK Rio and Ketchup and Mustard, seemed to have higher praise for the game, which could be in part to MK11's movement style and neutral gameplay being similar to Mortal Kombat 9. But on May 26, 2020, with the release of MK11 Aftermath, the stability of the community's opinions on MK11 would go from bad to much, much worse. The Aftermath expansion in regards to the single player editions was a major success. As someone who heavily favored multiplayer in comparison to single player, the Aftermath DLC was the first time I played through the story mode rather than just watching my friend play it. The expansion featured 3 new DLC characters, each with their own unique perks. Fujin was one of the most popular characters in Mortal Kombat 9 and was a fan favorite to return for MK11. RoboCop would potentially be the first true zoning character on the roster, and Shiva would satisfy all the fans who missed a playable version of Goro that was incredibly popular in MKX. But oh boy, how naive we were. We were in for a whole year of the worst Mortal Kombat meta in the history of fighting games, the Shiva Stomp meta. If you aren't quite as familiar with Mortal Kombat, Shiva Stomp is a special move that is inherited from the extremely popular character Goro from the Mortal Kombat universe. The stomp can be aimed at the cost of 1 variation slot, and requires the opponent to dash once Shiva's character model is off the screen to avoid it. Here's the catch. Not only can a Shiva player aim the stomp, she can also delay it. So if you wait until Shiva is off screen, the player can just aim the stomp where they expect you to dash. This creates an almost impossible to guess situation. The direction you chose to dash was usually your character's fastest dash direction. If you don't play MK11, each character has a unique forward and backward dash speed. Melina's, for example, is much faster backwards than forwards, and Rain's is much faster forwards than backwards. If you didn't play during Shiva's Reign of Terror, please thank the Elder Gods you didn't have to experience the madness of a single ability that got a crushing blow after 3 successful hits that was almost impossible to avoid. The original stomp with the 1-slot addition of an aim stomp allowed a Shiva player to cancel the stomp at 30 different intervals in one single move. Yes, you heard that, 30 different timings that you had to dodge. On top of that, the move was incredibly hard to punish. It did have around 30 recovery frames on whiff, but because the stomp could land at any time, most players would miss the punish window because they were spamming dash to dodge it. And if the stomp hits you, you are getting stomp looped. You better have a plan as soon as you get up off the ground. The last awful thing about this move was that Shiva entered a crouch-like state after using stomp, and so even if you correctly timed your dash and went the right direction, your attack could still whiff when you attempted to punish Shiva for using the attack. In my personal opinion, this was the only move I have ever played against in NetherRealm history that was truly pay to win. Players that bought Shiva could learn one input, literally just down up on the controller, and have a 75% win rate. To me, it might be the single greatest attack in an online setting in fighting game history, and in the clips I'm showing on screen, this is a top 10 player in the world struggling against someone who's using like 2 different moves throughout the match. Obviously, the community was pissed. However, by releasing her at the start of life-altering stay-at-home events, the character wasn't quickly reworked. I also want to point out this commentary doesn't even focus on the 3rd slot move, which was Shiva's Dragon Stance. For a short time, Dragon Stance was one of the best projectiles in the game, and some characters literally could do nothing about it because you couldn't interrupt it from a block string into the Dragon Stance. If you're unfamiliar with block strings, it basically means Shiva could use a quick combo string and then always cancel it into the Dragon Stance and you wouldn't be able to punish it. Meanwhile, you're eating all that chip damage. It also doesn't truly highlight the fact that people trying to actually learn Shiva without the stomp would literally have to make their variation name I Don't Stomp just to stop you from leaving the match against her. So we've established that Shiva Stomp had turned the community upside down, and NetherRealm wasn't able to address the problem quickly. A short but sad note, MK11 is one of my favorite games of all time, and this meta is what drove a large portion of the player base away from the game. Hopefully all these players will be recovered upon the release of Mortal Kombat 12. It is just so hard to have a game last 4 years, and it's even harder when there's a clearly terrible feature that's locked behind a paywall, ruining the experience for most players. So how did the community begin to turn on NetherRealm? After months of disgruntled players complaining about Shiva, a top player who had been dominating the online tournament scene was finally directly addressed by NetherRealm. The player's name was Titanium Tigers, and they had been wreaking havoc on the online competitive scene in 2020 and early 2021. Titanium Tigers had been using Shiva unapologetically, honestly, and had performed quite well in tournaments using her. In a tournament in January of 2021 though, Titanium Tigers made his custom variation name, Why Did NRS Do This? And here was the result.
Looked like it.
It was very, very close. So is
We're
this
gonna make him bleed here. He's bleeding all over the place. Every bit that he moves. Looks like we got a bad transition here. I lost the Nice. So unfortunately, looks like we have a little problem here, and someone is
we have a
being.
situation?
We got a situation. I don't know what we can publicly say, but we definitely have a situation here, and
Let's go
we're
with that
gonna have
for
to
now.
cut away from the match. So just bear with us. We're gonna get everything sorted out, and hopefully we'll have a statement for you soon. But a lot of weird things that we saw going on there. Shiva stomping, Kano balling. Yeah. We
So
really
just
don't
bear with
know.
us.
So yeah, it's a little bit and it looks like it's it's gonna be Crispy Fungus who's gonna be advancing. Again, guys, we're getting the updates.
Yeah.
This is
Move on and go back.
unfortunately you guys have to all abide to the rules. And it looks like it's going to be Titanium Tigers who is disqualified from tonight's top 8, tonight's tournament. So that's very unfortunate, but rules are rules. Everybody's got to be respectful. You gotta really. That's all I can say. You got to be respectful, and just mind what kind of info you're putting out there. What kind of person you're saying you're being.
This was honestly a massive shock to the player base, as variation names such as Nerf Jackie or Nerf Cetrion were never a problem in previous tournaments. It could be that it was directly mentioning NRS, so it seems a little more targeted, but honestly, I don't think it was that big of a deal, but I get it either way. This marked the beginning of true outrage. YouTube was filled with dozens of videos covering this incident, and the Mortal Kombat community was rightfully upset that a character every player knew was a problem was seemingly being covered up by the developers themselves. After this incident, NetherRealm attempted to alleviate some of the turmoil by making a small patch to Shiva, but it just wasn't enough. There was only slight hurtbox changes on her stomp recovery, and the dragon stance was now interruptible on some of her block strings. Now we move forward again to May of 2021. A streamed MK11 tournament was hosted that featured tons of popular Twitch streamers. I'm talking high enough profile in comparison to what the Mortal Kombat community is used to, because it literally had Shroud, one of the biggest streamers and best FPS players of all time, playing MK11 in the tournament. During the tournament though, a streamer by the name of Elspeth got matched up against a player using Shiva.
I can't do anything. Shit. I know it's supposed to be fun. I get it. I shouldn't be crying, but I really can't do anything. This sucks. How do I get out of this, dude? I guess I have to just block? Oh gosh. Oh, horrible. They don't even know how to do a fatality.
This clip obviously made the rounds on Mortal Kombat's social medias, and NetherRealm's Twitter replies were filled with people dunking on them for allowing this move to stick around for so long. It was also brought up that this being featured to the wider gaming community could potentially tarnish the reputation of the game for, a new audience. And at last, after a year straight of Shiva's torment from casual play, Kombat League to Mortal Kombat tournaments, and now general Twitch tournaments, Shiva was finally nerfed into the ground. NetherRealm went ahead and put out the patch we had all been waiting for. Shiva's stomp now had 60 frames of recovery on whiff, which means you now had twice as long to perform your punish and get a full combo. Shiva's delayed stomp also now only had 1 delayed timing, which was down from 30 before the patch. Shiva's hitbox on stomp was also smaller in general, so you didn't have to dash near as far away to avoid the move, to the point that you can now just walk to avoid the stomp. You essentially have to be standing still or caught using a move to get hit by the stomp. And at last, we were free. Everything was right and peaceful in the community, and the year-long battle between the developers and Mortal Kombat fans could finally come to a close. I want to say thank you to NetherRealm though. I love MK11, and this video is only here to highlight an important period of history in the game's life cycle. Even with Airgas Cabal and other things like that, the game is in its most balanced state of all time as of now, and I couldn't be more grateful for the content, this game has provided me the ability to make. But is it any coincidence that after being berated on Twitter for a full year, NetherRealm decided to discontinue support for Mortal Kombat 11. Yeah, that was only like a month after the Shiva nerf. I don't think that was a coincidence.